First contact in the Academy. Professor Xylith stood before the Galactic Medical Institute's board of directors, her iridescent scales shifting from deep blue to anxious purple as she made her proposal. Distinguished colleagues, the arrival of Jasmine Rodriguez marks a historic moment. She will be our first human medical student, and I believe her presence will revolutionize our understanding of xenobiology. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Director Voxnom's crystalline form sparkled with skepticism as he leaned forward. Professor, humans are barely a Class II civilization. Their medical knowledge is precisely why we need them here, Xylith interrupted, her scales flashing confident gold. Their physiological capabilities defy our current understanding of biological limitations. The next morning, Jasmine stepped through the quantum gates of the Institute, her dark eyes wide with wonder as she took in the massive crystalline spires that housed the most advanced medical training facility in the known galaxy. Her heart raced, though years of surgical training helped her maintain a composed exterior. The orientation chamber filled with a diverse array of beings, some gaseous, others crystalline, and many that defied Earth's classification systems. Among them was Crix, a Centaurian medical prodigy whose tentacular neural networks rippled with curiosity at the sight of the human. Your endoskeleton is internal? Crix asked, multiple eye stalks focusing on Jasmine. How do you maintain structural integrity? Before Jasmine could answer, another student, a silicon-based being named Thorax, joined the conversation. I heard humans can repair severe tissue damage without medical intervention. Is this true? Jasmine smiled, already used to such questions after months of preparation for this moment. Our bodies have remarkable healing capabilities, yes. But there's still so much we don't understand about our own physiology. The first weeks at the Institute proved challenging. During anatomical studies, Jasmine's classmates were astounded by the inefficiency of human organs. You only have one heart, asked PX Tau, a gelatinous entity from the Andromeda galaxy. And it's not even protected by a quantum shield. But everything changed during the practical examinations. While other species required specialized environments and careful monitoring, Jasmine demonstrated remarkable adaptability. She could function in varying gravitational conditions, withstand significant temperature fluctuations, and continue performing complex procedures even when fatigued. Professor Xylith documented everything. Subject demonstrates extraordinary regenerative capabilities, she noted as Jasmine recovered from a minor laboratory accident in mere days, a process that would take standard healing tanks weeks to accomplish for most species. The turning point came during the xenopathology practical. A simulation of a high-pressure environment failed, subjecting the entire class to rapid pressure changes. While other students required immediate medical intervention, Jasmine's body automatically compensated, and she helped stabilize her classmates before the emergency systems engaged. Remarkable, whispered Dr. Nexus, the xenobiology department head. The human body appears to possess unprecedented homeostatic mechanisms. As the first semester progressed, Jasmine's presence sparked a revolution in the Institute's research approach. Traditional models of biological limitations had to be reconsidered. The human body, with its seemingly primitive design, demonstrated levels of resilience that the most advanced species couldn't replicate. It's not about technological advancement, Jasmine explained during a lecture hall discussion. Earth's harsh and constantly changing environment forced our bodies to develop extraordinary adaptation mechanisms. What you see as inefficient redundancy is actually sophisticated survival engineering. The alien students began to see their human classmate in a new light. Her primitive biology was proving to be one of the most sophisticated systems they'd ever studied. Jasmine's ability to handle sleep deprivation, adapt to various environmental pressures, and recover from physical stress challenged their fundamental understanding of biological capabilities. Professor Xylith's scales had settled into a permanent shade of proud gold. Her intuition about bringing a human to the Institute was proving correct. But as the semester drew to a close, none of them realized that their discoveries about human resilience had only scratched the surface. The real tests of human capabilities, and the revelations they would bring, were yet to come. The Breaking Point Experiment. The Institute's research chamber Delta hummed with anticipation as Professor Xylith prepared for the most ambitious series of tests ever conducted on human physiology. Jasmine stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by monitoring equipment that sparkled like stars in the dimly lit room. "Are you certain about this, Student Rodriguez?" Professor Xylith's scales shifted to concerned violet. These tests were designed for Class 3 civilizations with enhanced biological capabilities. "I trust my body's limits," Jasmine replied, securing the neural monitors to her temples. "And I trust your expertise, Professor." The first test focused on cellular regeneration. While most species required specialized catalysts to trigger healing, human bodies seemed to do it automatically. Dr. Nexus observed from the control room as synthetic damage was introduced to a small patch of Jasmine's skin. "Impossible," whispered Crix, their tentacles coiling in disbelief as they watched the readings. The healing response initiated before the medical sensors could even register the injury. But it was the stress adaptation tests that truly shocked the observers. Under increasing gravitational pressure, most species showed rapid deterioration of cellular integrity. Jasmine's body, however, began producing additional red blood cells to compensate for the stress, a response that fascinated the xenobiologists. "The human body doesn't just heal," Dr. Nexus noted, "it adapts and becomes stronger." During the endurance trials, Jasmine's classmates watched in amazement as she continued functioning under conditions that would incapacitate most species. Thorax's crystalline structure vibrated with excitement as they recorded the data. "Their muscle fibers actually repair and strengthen after damage," they announced. "It's like their bodies use stress as a blueprint for improvement." The most controversial test came last, the pain response analysis. The ethics board had initially rejected it, but Jasmine's insistence and the potential medical applications finally convinced them. "Pain for humans isn't just a warning system," Jasmine explained as the sensors were attached. "It's an integrated part of our survival mechanism." What followed astonished even the most skeptical observers. Under controlled conditions, Jasmine demonstrated how humans could continue functioning despite significant pain signals, a capability that most species couldn't comprehend. "Their nervous system includes pain suppression mechanisms," Professor Xylith reported, her scales now a brilliant shade of academic excitement. "They can temporarily override pain signals when survival requires it." But the real breakthrough came unexpectedly. During a cellular stress test, the equipment malfunctioned, exposing Jasmine to higher levels of pressure than intended. Before the safety protocols could engage, something remarkable happened. "Her cells are adapting," PXTAL exclaimed, their gelatinous form rippling with excitement. "They're not just resisting the pressure, they're restructuring to function better under it." The emergency shutdown activated, but the data was already recorded. Human cells didn't just survive stress, they used it to evolve and improve. This discovery sent shockwaves through the Institute's research community. "It appears," Professor Xylith addressed the hastily assembled board, "that human biology operates on principles we hadn't considered possible. Their bodies don't just maintain homeostasis, they actively seek to improve their baseline capabilities through stress exposure." The implications were staggering. Traditional medical theories had always focused on maintaining biological stability. The human approach of using controlled stress to trigger improvements opened entirely new avenues for medical research. But as the data was being compiled, concerns arose among some faculty members. "If their bodies are this adaptable," Director Voxnam cautioned, "what other capabilities might they develop under extreme circumstances?" Professor Xylith's scales flickered with uncertainty. The question wasn't just academic anymore. Understanding human resilience had become crucial for the galactic medical community, but it also raised questions about humanity's potential that some found unsettling. As Jasmine recovered in the medical bay, her classmates viewed her with new fascination. The primitive human had demonstrated biological capabilities that their most advanced medical technology couldn't replicate. But none of them realized that the most extraordinary demonstration of human resilience was yet to come, and it wouldn't happen in a controlled laboratory setting. Crisis in zero gravity. The Helios space station hung like a silver spider web against the purple nebula of the Carina sector. As part of their advanced medical training, senior students from the Galactic Medical Institute were required to complete a rotation in zero-gravity emergency response. Remember, instructed Dr. Lyran, her photosynthetic tendrils gently swaying in the artificial atmosphere, different species react unpredictably to emergency situations. Today's simulation will test your ability to. The station's emergency sirens cut her off mid-sentence. This was no simulation. Hull breach detected in Section 7, announced the AI system. Gravitational stabilizers failing. Atmospheric contamination imminent. Jasmine's body instantly responded, adrenaline sharpening her senses as she watched her classmates struggle with the sudden loss of gravity. Crix's tentacles flailed uselessly, while Thorax's crystalline form seemed paralyzed by the rapidly changing conditions. Emergency protocols activate in 3 minutes, Dr. Lyran announced, her own photosynthetic system struggling with the pressure changes. We need to evacuate. A violent shudder ran through the station. Through the observation window, Jasmine saw the source of the problem. A small asteroid had penetrated the outer hull, and the emergency force fields were failing to contain the breach. The manual override, Thorax managed to communicate through their crystal resonance. Someone needs to reach the engineering deck to activate it, but in these conditions. Without hesitation, Jasmine pushed off from the wall, using the zero gravity to her advantage. Years of swimming and rock climbing on Earth had given her an innate understanding of three-dimensional movement that now proved invaluable. Rodriguez, stop. Dr. Lyran called out. Human physiology isn't rated for exposure to. But Jasmine was already moving through the corridors, using handholds and momentum to navigate the increasingly unstable environment. The station's atmosphere was thinning, and warning lights flashed everywhere. Her classmates watched in astonishment through the security feeds as she made her way toward engineering. The human body's ability to function under extreme stress, which they had observed in the lab, was now being demonstrated in a life-or-death situation. Her cardiac system should be failing, P. Extal observed, their gelatinous form pressed against a stabilizing field. The pressure changes alone. Look at her oxygen efficiency, Crix added, monitoring the biological readings. She's automatically adjusting her breathing pattern to compensate for the thin atmosphere. Reaching the engineering deck, Jasmine encountered her first major obstacle. The manual override required significant physical force to activate, force that would be difficult to generate in zero gravity. Most species would need specialized equipment or multiple individuals to generate enough power. The station shuddered again. 2 minutes to critical failure, announced the AI. Jasmine's muscles burned as she braced herself against the wall, using her legs to generate the force needed. The human musculoskeletal system, evolved to handle Earth's gravity, proved to be an unexpected advantage in this crisis. She's using the wall as a leverage point, Dr. Lyran observed with growing amazement. The same biological adaptability we saw in the lab. With a final burst of effort, Jasmine activated the override. The emergency systems engaged, stabilizing the hull breach with backup force fields. As gravity slowly returned, she felt every muscle in her body protesting, but the human healing factor she'd demonstrated in the labs was already beginning to work. When the rescue teams arrived 20 minutes later, they found the medical training group safe, thanks to the actions of their human colleague. The incident would become a case study in emergency response training across the galaxy. I don't understand, Thorax said later in the medical bay, where Jasmine was recovering. How did you know you could withstand those conditions? I didn't, Jasmine replied, wincing as her muscles continued to heal. But humans have a long history of discovering our limits only when we're forced to exceed them. Professor Xylith, who had rushed to the station upon hearing the news, watched her scales shift through colors of concern and pride. The incident had demonstrated something crucial about human resilience. It wasn't just about physical capabilities, but about the mysterious interaction between human consciousness and their biological systems. But as reports of the incident spread through the institute, they caught the attention of a group of students who had been conducting their own unauthorized research into human capabilities. What they had witnessed would inspire them to push the boundaries of ethical research, leading to a crisis that would test not just human physical resilience, but the foundations of trust between species. The forbidden research. In the deepest level of the institute's research wing, far from the authorized laboratories, a group of students had converted an abandoned quantum physics lab into their private research facility. Led by NXVith, a brilliant but obsessed Arcturian whose plasma-based form pulsed with dark purpose, they had been secretly monitoring Jasmine's demonstrations of human resilience. The official experiments barely scratched the surface, NXVith addressed their conspirators. After what we witnessed on the Helio station, how can we not investigate further? The makeshift lab contained modified equipment salvaged from defunct research projects. Monitors displayed data stolen from Professor Xylitha's official tests, alongside new algorithms designed to probe deeper into human biological capabilities. But we need a test subject, Thorax whispered, their crystalline form clouded with doubt. Having witnessed Jasmine's heroics firsthand, they had reluctantly joined the group, torn between scientific curiosity and ethical concerns. Already arranged, NXVith responded, their plasma form brightening with anticipation. Remember Dr. Nexus's new human research assistant? Daniel Harrison had arrived at the institute 2 weeks after the Helios incident, assigned to help process the growing mountain of data on human biology. Young and eager to prove himself in the galactic scientific community, he had accepted NXVith's invitation to participate in unofficial research without suspicion. The experiments began subtly. Small tests disguised as routine medical scans, each pushing slightly beyond approved parameters. Daniel's body responded just as they hoped, demonstrating the same remarkable adaptability they had observed in Jasmine. Look at this cellular response, PX Tau noted, their gelatinous form trembling with excitement. The human body doesn't just heal, it creates new neural pathways to prevent similar damage in the future. But NXVith wanted more. Each successful test drove them to push further, their scientific objectivity increasingly clouded by obsession. If we can understand how they adapt, they argued, we could revolutionize medical science across the galaxy. The turning point came during their 15th unauthorized session. Daniel lay unconscious in their modified stasis chamber as they attempted to trigger an extreme adaptive response. The chamber's walls glowed with unauthorized energy signatures as they pushed his body beyond all safe limits. These readings are impossible, Crix muttered, their tentacles writhing with anxiety. No biological system should be able to. Suddenly, alarms blared. Daniel's body was demonstrating adaptation levels that threatened to overload their monitoring equipment. But something was wrong. His cellular structure was changing in ways they hadn't predicted. Shut it down, Thorax demanded, their crystalline form resonating with fear. This isn't adaptation anymore, it's transformation. Before they could act, the lab's doors slid open. Professor Xylith stood in the entrance, her scales a dangerous red of fury and horror. Behind her, Jasmine's face went pale as she recognized Daniel's unconscious form. What have you done? Xylitha's voice carried the weight of centuries of ethical scientific tradition. The next hours passed in a blur of medical emergency responses and security lockdowns. Daniel was rushed to the institute's most advanced medical bay, his body struggling to stabilize from the unauthorized experiments. The guilty students were detained, their research confiscated. But amidst the chaos, something remarkable emerged. As the medical team worked to save Daniel, they discovered that his body hadn't just survived the extreme conditions, it had developed entirely new cellular structures. Structures that, theoretically, shouldn't have been possible. His DNA, Professor Xylith explained to the emergency board meeting, has undergone controlled evolution. The human survival drive appears to have triggered capabilities we never imagined possible. The implications stunned the galactic medical community. Human resilience wasn't just about healing or adaptation, it was about transformation. Under extreme pressure, human biology could literally rewrite itself to survive. As Daniel recovered, showing no lasting damage and actually demonstrating enhanced resilience, the Institute faced a crucial decision. The unauthorized experiments had revealed capabilities that could revolutionize medical science, but at what ethical cost? Meanwhile, in her quarters, Jasmine struggled with her own revelation. She had helped expose the unauthorized lab after noticing suspicious patterns in Daniel's behavior, but now she wondered, just how far could human adaptation go? The answer would soon prove more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined. Evolution of understanding. The grand auditorium of the Galactic Medical Institute had never been so full. Representatives from every major spacefaring civilization crowded the crystalline chamber, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of galactic life. At the center stage stood Jasmine Rodriguez and Daniel Harrison, preparing to present their groundbreaking research on human adaptive capabilities. Professor Xylith's scales shimmered with anticipation as she introduced them. What began as a simple educational exchange has led us to completely reconceptualize our understanding of biological potential. The holoscreen behind them displayed the combined data from both the authorized research and the infamous, forbidden experiments. Though the rogue students had faced consequences for their ethical violations, their data couldn't be ignored. Human resilience isn't just about survival, Jasmine began, her voice steady. It's about transformation. Every challenge we overcome rewrites our biological narrative. Daniel stepped forward, his presence itself a testament to human adaptation. The cellular changes he had undergone during the unauthorized experiments hadn't faded, instead, they had stabilized into something new. My experience, he explained, proves that human potential isn't fixed. Under extreme pressure, our bodies don't just adapt, they evolve. Not over generations, but in real time. The audience stirred as they displayed the evidence. Microscopic footage showed human cells literally rewriting their structure in response to environmental challenges. What other species achieved through millennia of evolution, human biology could accomplish in moments of crisis. But there's a crucial element we've been missing, Jasmine continued. The psychological component. Our bodies don't just change randomly, they change in response to our will to survive, to protect, to overcome. This revelation sparked intense debate among the gathered scientists. The idea that consciousness could directly influence evolutionary adaptation challenged everything they thought they knew about biological development. Dr. Nexus rose from his seat, his crystalline form catching the light. Are you suggesting that human consciousness actively directs their cellular adaptation? More than that, Daniel replied. Our research suggests that human resilience is a partnership between mind and body. Our consciousness doesn't just direct adaptation, it imagines new possibilities for our biology to achieve. The implications were staggering. The very traits that some had dismissed as primitive, human emotions, instincts, and determination, were actually sophisticated biological tools, driving an unprecedented form of directed evolution. Professor Xylith presented the final findings. We propose a new classification for human biology. Not as a developing system, but as an adaptive consciousness species, life forms capable of intentional biological evolution. The presentation concluded with a practical demonstration. Under carefully controlled conditions, Jasmine and Daniel demonstrated how humans could consciously influence their bodies' responses to various challenges. What had once seemed like simple endurance now revealed itself as active biological transformation. This isn't just about human capability, Jasmine concluded. It's about the potential within all life. If human biology can achieve this through the pressures of one planet's evolution, imagine what other species might discover about themselves. The aftermath of the presentation transformed the Institute. The ethical protocols for xenobiological research were completely revised, emphasizing the partnership between consciousness and biology. The rogue students, after serving their penalties, were allowed to continue their studies under strict supervision, their understanding of ethical boundaries deepened by their experience. But perhaps the most profound change was in how the galactic community viewed humanity. No longer were humans seen as simple beings from a young civilization. They were recognized as pioneers of biological potential, their very nature challenging the established boundaries between consciousness and evolution. In her private laboratory, Professor Xylith made one final entry in her research logs, her scales glowing with the soft blue of profound understanding. The human body is not merely a survival machine, it is a testament to the power of life to transcend its own limitations. In studying human resilience, we have glimpsed not just humanity's future, but the future of all biological life in our galaxy. The story of Jasmine Rodriguez and Daniel Harrison became legend at the Institute, not just for what they endured, but for what they revealed, that the greatest frontier in medical science wasn't in technology or technique, but in understanding the remarkable partnership between mind, body, and the will to evolve.